Morning, Mr. President. Thank you. Mr. President, ambassadors, distinguished guests. My name is Commander McBride. I was formerly the executive officer of the U.S. National Naval Ice Center. We do sea ice analysis and forecasting for the Antarctic and the Arctic. My former job, I was the Arctic Affairs Officer for the Navy's Task Force Climate Change. My job was to be the guy that ran every detail of the U.S. Navy's Arctic roadmap, which some of you are familiar with. The objective of this roadmap, which has recently been updated, I ran it for the first 3 years, was to inform policymakers, decision makers with facts and insight from relationships with our Arctic and non-Arctic participants in the world, as well as the Antarctic, so that we can have better policy decisions and budget decisions. I recently served as the Science Fellow for the U.S. Embassy in Reykjavik from April to June of this year, and I am currently in the U.S. Embassy in Singapore. And Ambassador Wagger, due to the recent addition of the permanent observers to the Arctic Council, my Ambassador Wagger is very pleased. I am his Arctic expert in Singapore. You may be surprised that there's not that many U.S. naval officers that are Arctic experts in Singapore. One of the most important action items that we accomplished in the Arctic Roadmap during my tenure was the mission analysis, and this gave insight into what the future holds. And what this means is, as changes occur, those are where we focus our budget resources. And as you can see, the only significant changes that we see are ongoing and continued increases in regional security cooperation, i.e. collaboration with our Arctic partners and non-Arctic partners, for adaptation to the changing Arctic, but also for search and rescue, maritime security, etc., with the Arctic SAR community. The natural step for me after this was the Office of Naval Research because, as I said before, you inform policymakers most effectively with facts and not ideology. So we have an Arctic program. The Office of Naval Research Global is the science diplomacy arm of ONR headquarters in DC around the world, hence my position in Singapore. I work with New Zealand and Iceland primarily, but anyone else that informs and enhances the science community, increasingly now with Singapore. We recently conducted a field experiment in northern Alaska called the Marginal Ice Zone experiment, and that is to show the breakup of the sea ice and to study the processes involved. And all of this is to forecast the weather more accurately, which, as you know, is the fundamental aspect of search and rescue. It's what causes some of the most significant problems associated with search and rescue, and it's the first thing that search and rescue community needs to know so they can either prepare their operations and equipment and training procedures. The next field experiment will be the Sea State Research Initiative, and that'll be conducted next summer north of Alaska. But examples of how do you improve the research, from basic research to sophisticated equipment and industry standard things. There's a so-called valley of death between basic research concepts and mature science and applications. The best way to get that done is to work with people that field test the equipment. So the best example of U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard cooperation in the Arctic right now is the so-called, everyone likes to make words out of acronyms, SIZRS. It's the Seasonal Ice Zone Reconnaissance Survey. So what we do, and it's a match made in heaven, to get insight, but also to conduct the research to fill in some of these needs, is the Coast Guard does Arctic domain awareness flights north of Alaska in the summer months. And so we fund researchers to sit in the back of those aircraft and drop instruments out as they cross over the northern slope of Alaska into the Arctic Ocean. And this is the core of our Arctic program. So it's a perfect match between a Coast Guard mission that's already occurring and we don't have to pay for an aircraft to go out there, and we can conduct the research during this. And one insight from my science fellowship here that Admiral Larson mentioned is the Search and Rescue Hub. Using the former U.S. Naval Air Station in Keflavik, the U.S. Navy in 2011 did a War College study, Fleet Arctic Operations Game, which you can Google and download the final report of this. If you look at page 52, there's a recommendation. These are recommendations that are descriptive and not proscriptive. So This is just to give insight and to policymakers so that they can make better choices and funding decisions, of course. What kind of search and rescue center of excellence would that be? Where would it be? Who would it be with? So if Iceland does form a search and rescue hub, it would be a surrogate for us. We wouldn't have to have our own, right? We can work together, which is the whole point of Arctic collaboration. And we could be involved in a center of excellence in the Arctic by virtue of the search and rescue hub. Now, one of the reasons why that's important is because Iceland's right in the middle of the other side of that shipping route that people talk about in the future. The Navy's planning, by the way, by the 2030s. So a research requirement by the a requirement to be able to operate and have the equipment and relationships developed by the 2030s is a research requirement right now, which is why I went from the Pentagon to the Office of Naval Research. So on the U.S. side of the Arctic, you see here there's 3 ways to get through the Arctic, and you can make a choice. If you need to adapt to changing weather conditions, you can make a choice. You cannot make a choice here with our border with Russia. So not only do we need to improve our relationships with the Russians in this area, which the Coast Guard is doing, but as human activity from Asia, which is the whole point of this side, which is one of the reasons why I live in Singapore, as the human activity increases, it will stress the capabilities of the U.S. Coast Guard. So we need to learn how to work together and with what, where, and when, and why. And the foundation of that right now certainly is weather forecasting capabilities, which is what I'm involved with. So I'm a science officer for the U.S. Navy, so I'm going to use a term of artistic license here. And meteorology and oceanography is about the water. And climate change is largely about changes in water, too much, too little, etc. So the triple point of water, as most of you are familiar with, and I'm going to take a leap of faith here and say that Iceland is the triple point of the northern Atlantic. And so if people are concerned about funding, they want to use existing resources. They don't want to have to go all the way across the other side of the basin. They want to go halfway. Iceland is in the middle, northern Europe, and it's the gateway to the Arctic. So not only can you do research here, and you don't have to simulate that with expensive lab equipment, but you can use actual results. But it's on the cusp we're on the cusp of the Arctic right now. So another good thing that sells when researchers are trying to support future operations is Arctic, yes. Nobody likes a one-trick pony. So if you can simulate non-Arctic conditions and have the equipment work more resiliently, more effectively, save time and money by working with partners, that is probably the key to success, because if you try to make a special one-trick pony, it's expensive and may not be that useful. So my office, as science diplomats, we fund travel for researchers. I cannot fund U.S. researchers. I can fund universities primarily, but also private industry to travel, to meet other researchers. One of the reasons why we're here right now is because this is where science happens. We get together and talk. So the idea is very simple. They travel, they have meetings, which we support with funding, outside the U.S., of course, in this case, and then they get smart enough to submit a research proposal to me so we could fund that. So it's it doesn't always happen in a linear way, but this is the basic idea. And this is ice-phobic coatings that the New Zealand Navy actually works with the Danish Navy, because they have offshore patrol ships that do the Camelar Fishing Treaty patrols in Antarctic waters. So ice-phobic coatings on the surface of New Zealand Navy ships, they're willing to field test these. That's an opportunity. Tags, marine mammal tags, in either pole. That technology, 70% of the oceanographic observations in the Southern Ocean come from marine mammal tags. It's vast, too expensive and too broad to collect data. So we use marine mammal tags, and if we can employ that in the Arctic to great effect, we'll have better observations of the Arctic, and we'll be able to predict the weather better. So this is basically the way I live my life, is trying to find innovative ways to solve problems to support search and rescue operators in the search and rescue community. That's all. Thank you.